Well, Hessler, how good it is to see you again.
We will attack through the Losheim Gap, which is defended only by a single battalion. Then the Ur River Bridge will be in our hands.
In 4 days, we will be across the River Meuse.
By taking Antwerp, we split the enemy forces in two. It will take them 18 months to recover.
Unusual clock, isn't it? It has only one cycle, 50 hours. We have the resources for 50 hours full-scale attack.
I'm putting you in command of our armored spear.
It can be done.
They're going to attack us.
Now, does it seem possible to you that headquarters would commit an entire army to an offensive in the south if there were any possibility of the Germans attacking in the Ardennes?
With all due respect to headquarters, they could be wrong. Pouring through, General. Crack troops. Brand new equipment.
Hey, what's forever, kid? The shop is closed. The Germans are coming,
At our last line of defense, the River Meuse. We'll cross it and dig in on the west bank.
Well, they can let us fight.
Those of us who understood knew in 1941 we could never win.
You mean, Colonel, for 3 years we have been fighting without any hope of victory?
I have lost 17 tanks and a battalion of men leveling Amblève for the sole purpose of reducing the enemy's will to fight.
From the American commander of Bastogne to the German commander. Nuts.
Well, dear players, here is the setup about the first scenario of the game Ardennes 1944, and this scenario is called the Wacht am Rhein, so is the typical scenario of the Battle of the Bulge. Well, I want to describe in short the deployment, the German deployment and the American one. Well, on the left you can see the units. Well, the units belonging to the 7th German Army. At the center you can see the 5th Panzer Army. Well, a little behind the 6th Panzer Army SS, and then on the right of the German deployment, well, you can see the other units, well, always belonging to the 15th German Army. On the contrary, well, the Americans, well, have only 2 armies. Well, on the left, well, on the left you find the 1st Army, and on the contrary, on the right, you have some units belonging to the 3rd Army. So actually, you can see that is the typical beginning of the onslaught, of the German onslaught. Please notice the weak American center. But to give some examples concerning the mechanics, I'm dealing with the left part of the German deployment. Such way I can limit my example also only to this sector. And then, well, I'm going to give you the conclusion. Well, guys, for the moment, it's all about the starting setup, and let's continue with the explanation of the turn of Ardennes 1944, and about the several phases that make up a complete turn. Each player turn is made up of 6 phases, and I'm going to list these phases. The first phase that is not to be done in this scenario is the air phase, and during this phase both players can assign air missions for their air units. Phase 2 is called artillery barrage, and generally some scenarios allow to do the artillery barrage. It's not the case of Wacht am Rhein. Why? Because we are going to use the artillery only to support the attacks. Then the phase number 3 is about the movement phase, no problem about, and the attack phase follows the movement phase, and the turn, the player turn, is closed by the strategic movement that you can compare to a typical second movement phase, or I don't know, a reserve phase. Well, please remember that generally, well, in this phase you can move units that can exploit some holes in the enemy deployment. And then to close the player turn, well, we are going to check the supply. Well, 6 phases. And then to a complete turn is made up of other 6 phases that concern the player B. Well, that's all about the description about the several phases that compose the turn, and I want to underline that there isn't anything difficult to understand. Well, let's start with the movement phase. I want to point out that we don't have to do any air mission or barrage. Why? Because I'm going to use the artillery to support the German attacks. So guys, I want your attention on this sector of the German deployment. We have the division 212 that is already adjacent to an American unit. So please remember that the unit can move when they are in the enemy zone, but one issue that you have to remember well is that when you are in an enemy zone of control, well, you are obliged to attack. The attack is mandatory. So please remember this detail. Well, we can consider that some news. Why? Because actually we have the habit to not to oblige the attacker to combat against adjacent defenders. In this case, you are obliged to attack. I want also to remind that the American unit that occupies fortification aren't obliged to attack. So, in this, in the following combat, well, I'm going only to determine the attack and the combat odds. Well, let's move something. For example, I want your attention on the division 352nd. Well, how many hexes can this division move? Well, actually, please remember that you have a typical terrain chart, and generally in clear, but this is not a clear hex. Well, please remember that at the moment you are in a forest hex, forest hexes 60-30, and this division has to cross this river. And when you want to cross the river, well, a non-motorized unit has to pay 1 movement point plus. So in this case, well, since this division, this whole division has 4 points of movement. And guys, I remember, well, I don't like these small numbers that indicate attack strength and movement allowance, unfortunately. So I hope in the future that the designer will get these numbers larger. Anyway, this division can move of only 1 hex, so I'm going to place this division here. Well, I don't want to move this other division. Why? Because I want to attack this fortification. On the contrary, I'm going to attack these other American armor units. Well, so let me take some cross to indicate better the desired attacks. Well, I'm going to place here another cross, and here again, third attack. Well, then I have the division 26 that is attacking this regiment of the 28th American Division. And last but not least, I'm moving the 2nd Panzer Division. Well, if you notice, well, I want to say something about the stacking. Generally, the stacking is 8 steps. Well, the rules use the acronym CEL, Combat Efficiency Level. Well, actually, I want to remind the players that each unit has 2 steps, and on a motorized unit you have a track. And so we have a complete division, so 2 efficiency levels, actually 2 steps, so 8 steps for each hex. And I'm moving the 2nd division to attack this regiment, the 110th regiment of the 28th. But guys, it's not a good move, I think, but I want only to explain some more combats. And please notice that I have placed 2 markers about the strategic movement that I repeat, guys, is only a way to have a second chance to move. And I'm placing this marker on the Lair division and also on this artillery. I want to point out also that the artillery has unlimbered and limbered or battery motorized or towed artillery. So please remember that I'm placing 2 strategic markers, and I'm going to move this unit in the strategic phase. Well, as regards the movement phase is all, let's continue with the combat phase. Well, finally, let's resolve the attacks, the German attacks. Well, we have the 212th Division that is attacking the regiment of the 4th American Division. Well, we have 9 strength factors, and I can add, well, these 4 points of the warfare brigade, other 6 points coming from another artillery, and so I have 6, 12, 17, 21 plus 9, 30 attack points. Well, and against, well, 5 points for the defender. So actually the starting odds is 6-1. But we have to consider that this unit is inside a fortification, so we have 2 shifts of column. And on the combat table, well, you have to move towards the left, so our odds becomes 4-1. But in this game we have a sort of rule called tactical concentration that actually allows the attacking player to gain 1 shift of column. So again we have the odds is 5-1, and you have to consider also the river, and all the units are behind this minor river, so another shift of column. So again we have 4-1. And let's roll the die. 4-1. I repeat, guys, you roll 2 dice. Unfortunately, inside the box you find only 1 die, so it's not a good thing, and you have to take another die. So roll 2 dice. Well, you get 7. When you get 7, well, the final result on the combat table is 7. Well, you have. Well, please remember that there is a mistake on the combat table. Well, you find B2. On the contrary, is D2. When you find D2, well, D2 means that the defender retreat. I'm going to show you D2. Well, D2. Well, that means that the defender retreats by 2 axes, but the defender doesn't lose any step. Well, in this case, well, I retreat of 2 axes this regiment, and I advance with my division. Well, I have resolved the combat, and I want now, well, I don't want to resolve all the combats. It's a long story, but I want to give you now the possibility that the German player has in the following strategic phase. Well, guys, other 2 things to close the combat that was conducted by my German division. Actually, well, D2, well, when the German player gets the result of D2, well, the units can advance 2 axes and they remove the fortification. So I'm going to remove the fortification. One unit enters Ardennes, and other 2 units advance to stay adjacent to the retreating American unit. Then let's continue quickly with the strategic phase, and I repeat, you can move the lair unit. Well, guys, I haven't resolved these other attacks, but please remember that actually, well, you shouldn't have many problems in understanding the several modifiers. So actually, there isn't anything of new in this system. It's a traditional system with some peculiarity. But as I said in my previous video, you shouldn't have any problem in handling it. So let's move the lair division. Well, I don't remember how many axes I can move along the main route. Well, this is a secondary route, and only 1 axe well, has a value of half movement points, so 7 movement points, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, please remember that you cannot move adjacent to other units. So actually, well, there isn't a following combat phase, and well, I repeat, the strategic phase can help the player to advance in a better way, but you cannot do a second combat. And to finish, guys, what about the supply? Well, actually, the supply, well, the supply rule doesn't have many difficult rules many difficult issues to understand. Well, you trace the supply to a road, and then this road has to lead to the edge of the map. So no problem about the supply. Well, let's close our analysis about the game mechanics of this new game by Zalewski, about these new Polish games. Well, actually, for the skill war gamers, it's not so difficult to learn this system. It seems to me very playable. There are some interesting rules, for example, the tactical concentration, some use of special units that, in short, give some better attacking modifier, but nothing more. So actually, I repeat, well, it's enough to place the game and try it without reading the rules. Or better, I suggest also the technique of skimming and scanning the first time that you are going to try the scenario, and then just from the second attempt you can handle all the game mechanics of this game without any problem. I have also forgotten to tell you two important things. The first one is about the victory condition. Actually, well, the players to win have to get some more victory points than the opponent. And how can you get the victory points? Generally, in this scenario, well, Wacht am Rhein, you have to seize the towns on the map. Peculiarly, in this Wacht am Rhein, you could win, the German player could also win by placing at least 3 units beyond the river, the big river Meuse. So I think that as usual it's almost impossible to get this sudden victory. But, well, by playing in a careful way, I think that the German player could win if is able to seize Bastogne. Please remember that I find main similarities with the old game by Dinessig, Ardennes. Why? Because there aren't many specific rules, and without many specific rules, I think that the German player has more chances to win. And I'm going to close this analysis by giving you my final opinions and impressions. Well, guys, we are at the end of our video review about the last game by Wojciech Zalewski entitled Ardennes 1944-1945. I haven't analyzed all the rules, otherwise the video review would be too long. I recommend the players to read carefully the rules concerning the fortification and the supply, and well, please have a careful look also at the several shifts that we have to consider when we are resolving the combats. Well, all in all, I can affirm that Wojciech Zalewski is improving more and more in the design of his games. Ardennes 1944 has good components, some problems, as I underline, concerning the map, small hexes for big counters. Anyway, the European perspective is well accepted. I don't remember other European authors that dealt with this topic. What about the price? Well, the price in Europe, well, a European player that wants to buy the game spends about 29 euros. On the contrary, if we remember, on the American market, well, the cost is about $39. So, well, obviously, I think that we have some import taxes that are applied to this Polish game. And I want to underline the coming soon video about the match that we'll see on one side Ardennes by Dean Essig, and the current Ardennes 1944 by Zalewski. So guys, stay tuned for this new experimental video about the match. It's all, and hope to see you soon. Cheers!